Welcome back to another weekly roundup of cloud gaming news brought to you by yours truly. Remember, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest in cloud gaming, be sure to subscribe to the channel and push all the good YouTube buttons down there. Otherwise, I will aggressively do things to your facial area. Just had to put that out there. With that said, let's get into this week's cloud gaming news. Starting things off with Stadia this week, and an interesting statement made by Alistair McFarlane, producer over at Facepunch Studios, the developer of Rust, on why the move to port Rust over to Google Stadia was rejected. He stated, "While exploring the feasibility of Stadia, we ran into a few hurdles and concerns. While most of these can be resolved, we're limited by Rust's memory consumption and over Google Stadia limits. Rust is a huge game with a lot of assets. Due to a certain engine," he's referring to Unity, "limitations and lack of memory-saving features, such as mesh streaming, Rust uses a large amount of memory. Our Steam minimum specs are 10 gigs of RAM with at least 4 gigs of video memory. Even with a cut down and compressed Rust build, we were still over Stadia limits. We're in continued talks with Google Stadia on how we can proceed. As mentioned, we'll revisit in the near future." So there seems to be a mix of causes behind this one. One is obviously down to Rust itself, the engine it's built in, and how lack of features such as mesh streaming cause it to be such a massive game. But combined with some common themes that we've seen time and time again, the difficulties these developers are having importing games over to run on Stadia, and even if it can be ported over, getting it to run well seems to be a whole other issue. This is a shame because Rust is another one of those titles which has blown up in popularity recently, and because of the high hardware specifications, as mentioned in that statement, needed to run Rust, it probably would have seen an explosion in Stadia signups. As I said, they'll be revisiting this one in the near future, so fingers crossed for an update on this sometime soon. But with that, it's the start of a new month, so we have new Stadia Pro titles for April. 4 titles this month with a decent mix, some titles for the family, for younger audiences, and some just not so much. First up is Piku Niku, a puzzle exploration game, followed by YS8, Lacrimosa of Dana. Nailed it. But this one is an anime-style JRPG, which is a nice addition to this genre in Stadia's library. Then, the big one this month, the one not for the family, don't give it to the kids, just don't do it. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, a great get for Stadia and a nice build up to the release of Resident Evil Village. And rounding things off with SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, Rehydrated, the remastered version of the 2003 title, although remastered is a strong word because the movement mechanics haven't really changed from almost a decade ago. But I digress. Moving on to Amazon Luna, and we're finally starting to see some movement from them with more games being added to the Luna Plus library in April, which is cool, but you want to know what's really cool? Expanding your beta outside of the US. So 3 games coming to the Luna Plus library in April. First up, we have an adventure puzzle game with Call of the Sea, followed by a big get for Amazon Luna is Ghost Runner, the cyberpunk-styled parkour hack and slash, which I have tried and I suck at. It's a difficult game, but it's a beautiful game with ray tracing on PC, so it'll be interesting to see how it runs on Amazon Luna. And finally, a Metroidvania-style game with Naruto Boy. So yes, only 3 games announced for April, but they could do some more surprise drops throughout the month. We've given Amazon a bit of a pass for the slow rollout as they've actually used the words beta to describe the current state of their service, but things need to start happening for them soon if they want to have completed a significant size rollout before the release of New World in August. Moving on to a slightly larger selection of titles for April, we have GeForce Now. First up is the 12 titles added to GeForce Now Thursday, which I'll throw up on screen here, and obviously the big call out has to be Outriders. Okay, it's Outriders. The version available on GeForce Now supports whether you've bought the game either in Steam or the Epic Game Store, which is nice to see both stores' versions being added to the service at the same time. The rest of the titles for this GeForce Now Thursday honestly fall more into the indie category, which is something we've seen a lot recently with GeForce Now, but that is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. With that, for the remainder of April, GeForce Now announced a further 21 titles, which again, I'll throw up on screen here. As we talked about before, these are just the titles which are 100% confirmed to be coming to the service, but with games constantly being onboarded with GeForce Now, we'll always get more additions that aren't on this list throughout the month every GeForce Now Thursday. Again, there's a bit of a mixed bag in this list. Some notable titles, some lesser known indies. So again, yeah, let me know from this list which ones you're excited about, which ones are a good get for GeForce Now. Finishing things up this week with Xcloud and news that just goes to show that Microsoft really do care about your nostalgic Xbox 360 days. Yes, 16 original Xbox and Xbox 360 titles are now available to stream to your Android devices through Xcloud, including big hits like Fable 2, Gears of War, Fallout New Vegas, aka the best one, and Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Microsoft has stated, "We've listened to feedback going all the way back to our earliest cloud gaming preview, and making games from previous generations available on mobile devices has been one of the most requested features by the community." Microsoft is even enabling touch controls for free titles, Jetpack Refueled, Viva Pinata, and Viva Pinata Tip. Just the tip. This is impressive because remember, they don't just slap generic controls on the screen. Each game has its own set of bespoke on-screen controls which Microsoft add individually. Of course, if you don't own an Android device, we're not that far off the Windows and web versions of Xcloud becoming available, with Microsoft slating their release for spring 2021. And despite it still being cold as balls, we are now actually in spring. But that's all from me this week, so of course, if you enjoyed the video, you found it somewhat helpful, a like rating would be appreciated. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next video. Hope everyone's staying safe out there, and as always, I shall see you in the next one.